Welcome to Angela Fehr Watercolor. Here's where I arm you with the techniques you need to grow to be a confident watercolor artist and the self-expression you need to become your own favorite watercolor painter. Today we're trying out a new technique, stamping with autumn leaves in watercolor. It's a little bit out of the box and that's why I love it. You can do this technique in about 15 minutes in your own studio, so it's a great warm-up for you. Let's get started. I've been really intrigued by artists who are using found objects in their paintings, leaves and grass and so forth, to create texture, and I wanted to try doing that today in my painting. So we're going to see what we can do with a little bit of negative painting and a little bit of wet and wet. We're going to start with our wet and wet and create a foundation to place our leaves on. I'm working with some Kingman green turquoise. You can see it's a lovely soft green. I would say it's closer to a green than a turquoise, maybe a little bit minty. We're gonna put some of that down on our paper. Paper I'm using today is Hahnemühle 140 pound Turner cold press. And let's make this interesting. We're gonna continue to build up our Kingman green turquoise. I think we need to add something a little bit golden to it. So we'll go with this Nicolezo yellow. And Nicolezo yellow has, as you can see, an amazing push to it. So I got interrupted. I started putting the Nicolezo yellow down, and just that one brush stroke, look at how it just took over and really made this beautiful glow of color with my Kingman green turquoise. Doesn't this look like a great beginning for some beautiful leaves? So what I'd like to do is, I've seen other artists using paint and leaves to basically stamp on their paper. So I want to give that a try, and I'm a little nervous about it because I've never done it before. And I'm not even sure what color to use or how much paint to put on. So we're just going to try a few things and experiment, and you get to come along for the ride. We're going to start with Perylene green. It's a really dark green, and we're going to paint it right onto the leaf, just the same way as I would ordinarily paint on paper. And just because I have no idea what I'm going to get, I'm going to add a little bit of additional color. Let's put on some of this Kingman green turquoise. Why not? And let it mingle with the Perylene green. And then let's press it on and just see what we get. Now my paper here is not dry, it's damp. We're going to layer it so that we have some of the leaf touching the dry paper and some touching the wet. That'll give us a really good idea of what's going to happen on both dry and wet paper. This very first stroke. Okay, so that didn't give us any veins or anything like that. Just kind of a leaf-shaped blur. Let's try a second stamp. We call this a ghost print in printmaking, where you take the leftover paint and press it down one more time. See if that helps. And then we're getting a little bit more. So that's good to know. There's got to be more that we can do though, don't you think? I want to try another leaf. And so I've got this one here, and I think I'm going to paint on the back side of this leaf because I see the veins are much more pronounced on that side. So we'll see if we can get some more movement happening there. I'm going to change up my colors here and go with the Aussie Red Gold and see if that helps. See how it goes. We are really stepping out of the comfort zone here, and that's the whole point here. Learning new things always involves being a little experimental, taking a few risks. Okay, so we're doing just the Aussie Red Gold this time. And I'm going to place it here down on mostly dry paper. I feel like if I want leaf texture to show, that might be the best way to go. Now that is a little more like it, don't you think? Let's put the next impression the ghost print up on the damp paper and see if it does something interesting for us. Oh, I like that. That's pretty. So I'm not sure what the difference was there, if we used better paint, if it was just a little bit drier is a possibility, but I'm liking that. Let's do it again. And I'm gonna do a little kind of cascade of leaves. So we'll put this one up here, which is actually the dampest part of the paper, so it might really blur. I love seeing how the color just kind of feathers off at the point of the leaf there. And again, the wetter paper means we have more movement. It's harder to see the texture in the leaf. And then the leftover ghost print. Let's do another ghost print. Oh, it's getting better every time. I'm not sure why that is. My printmaker friends will tell you that the ghost print is often better than the original. Beautiful. Okay, let's work with what we have here. These beautifully stamped leaves. I think we could do more. I've got more leaves here. We could decide we want more color. Maybe we would maybe it would be neat in a future one to try different shapes of leaves. We're keeping it simple this very first time. I'm going to go in with my loose goose brush here and paint some kind of accent bits. So using the loose goose dagger striper gives me really nice line. That might help. I'm thinking leaf veins. I'm thinking leaf stems. I think I want to be softer than that. Let's use some of that Perylene green. Made such a beautiful dark swoosh of color kind of up in this area. If I paint it into the damp parts of my painting, right in here for my dark stem, maybe it's a bit of a shadow. My paint behaves differently on different levels of wetness. So up here, the paper is quite damp and absorbent. Here, the paper is still shiny and moist. I get different effects, so I'm really watchful for that, and I'm aware of it. And now I have a leaf vein on my hand because I put my hand onto my leaf. And let's grab a little bit of that Nicolazo yellow one last time. This time, instead of painting it on my painting, I'm going to splatter it. And this whippy brush really does splatter quite easily, so I just give it a light tap. Try not to be too violent because I want my spatter to look natural. And I think a little Aussie red gold and spatter as well might be fun. In just a moment, we're going to be finishing up adding those final details to the painting to really make those leaves pop. But I'd love to hear from you. Since this is a new technique for me, I'd love to hear from you if you've done this technique before and the tips that you might want to share with the audience. And I'd love to hear what you'd like to see in a future video. I want to create more tutorials that really meet the needs where you're at, and so by sharing in the comments below what you'd like to see in the future, it really helps me to plan my video content. Don't forget as well to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified when new videos come up, when I do live sessions or share techniques and tutorials that are helpful for you. So one thing I've learned is that when you leave your leaves overnight, they get a little crunchy. It's a little bit hard to use them again. But I think we've got a really good beginning here. And learning a few things, we do see that the leaves, the texture of the leaves shows up the best on the drier paper. Where the paper was damp, you know, we have just kind of this shadow of a suggestion, which I actually like. I like the idea of having some looseness there. And just things feathering away, especially as you move away from your focal point. So this is where we think about being, working with accidents and yet also being intentional. We have to do both when we want to paint loosely. And so I'm here, I'm intentional with what the colors that I chose and the desire, the subject matter, the desire to paint, you know, from the autumn inspiration all around me. And then I'm also making room for those accidents, the beauty of the unexpected as I let those leaves kind of emerge on the paper. And as we come back now for this new layer of color, we can continue to be open to work with what's occurring on the paper and let it guide us. And it's really fun to see that happen. So I'm just negative painting one side of one leaf right now, and I want there to be some softness. I don't want it just to be a strong crisp line. So what I can do is I can take some of that original Aussie red gold, touch it in along my painting in a few places, and it touches that edge and it's going to flow, and that gives me this beautiful harmony. It gives me a broken line. Aussie red gold's a little bit tricky to work with when we're letting it flow because it's a multi-pigment color, and so it does tend to create a bit of muddiness. It's just something I'm aware of, and I try to use my Aussie red gold with a light touch. It's got a bit of opacity to it, so I can even layer it a bit over darker colors and see it keep its life. I'm using less wet and wet, so the brush strokes I put down tend to stay where I put them and go where the water tells them to go. And the intentionality is in working with what's already happening on the paper. And think of it this way: we had our accidents, our happy accidents in our leaf shapes, and letting those colors flow together. So now we're building up and reinforcing things. So it means I don't have to reinvent anything at this stage. I'm going to put a dark hole in this leaf. I think it might look interesting. And it's too dark. Look at how it's like this black hole in the painting. So then we lift it slightly. I'm going to wet it slightly and then lift it slightly. And that gives it a little bit more depth. That looks more accurate, more realistic. But I'm really just being present in what's happening on the painting and then trying to find ways to make it happen in ways that indicate more of what's already going on the paper. I like this mark here, so this mark over here kind of echoes it. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. Pulling up a little bit more of that Kingman green turquoise. Let's see if we can spatter some. how it will behave if we splash it around a bit. Notice as well that as I've gone in with my dark green, my Perylene green, it makes this beautiful path along the painting, and that guides the eye. We go to those dark areas and then we follow them. And so anywhere I've placed a dark, it's corresponding, it's balancing, it's echoing and helping our viewer kind of travel through the painting. So a little dark here and a little dark here kind of unify. They bring the eye, you know, up along here, but it also comes this way and this way. And we experience more of the painting than if those areas were completely bare of those stronger values. Really liking, and I don't know how well you can see it, but down in this area, we've got this really beautiful texture. It's just this kind of web of textural stuff going on in a really pretty, interesting pattern. It feels a little bit lacy, and I love the counterpart that makes against some of these washes of darker color where the paint really just covers the paper. I think there's a lot to enjoy here. And I don't think I want to do anything more. I think I'm just going to let it be. I think it feels complete to me. And so I'm going to set it aside, let it dry, and then come back and forth and look at it over the next few days to make sure that I don't see anything leaping out at me that needs to be changed or tweaked. And I love to give a painting time to let me know if it needs anything else. When I let the painting tell me, it works out a lot better than if I try to force something to happen.